Hello and welcome to the Symmetry Sessions podcast. I'm your host, Heather McPaul. Join me for in-depth, down-to-earth, and casual conversations about all things healthy, wealthy, and wise. We delve into topics related to therapy, mental health, relationships, business, and more with guests from all walks of life. And even though I am a professionally licensed counselor, this is just a show, and the information presented is just for informational, educational purposes only. It's definitely not meant to replace getting professional help from a doctor or a therapist. So please seek that help from a qualified healthcare professional if you need it. And if it is an emergency, please call 988 or other appropriate emergency services. I'm very excited to bring to you a variety of amazing guests and topics, so let's get started with today's episode. Welcome to the Symmetry Sessions. So a very exciting guest today. I'm joined by Kyrus Keenan Westcott, a motivational influencer, mental health advocate, neurospicy humorist, musical play director, digital marketer, and you may know him from The Vibe with Kai on Instagram and TikTok. Welcome, Kai.
Hi, Heather. So nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. I threw caution to the wind when I reached out to you, never thinking that you might actually do this. But I invited you here to come and talk about living as an adult with ADHD and that
hmm
intersection of mental health and humor, because huge fan of your Instagram. I share your posts with my friends all the time. It's hilarious. And so I guess the place to start is like, well, how did all that happen to you? How did you become a neurospicy humorist?
It's really interesting because growing up, I at no point did I ever think that this would be something that I would pursue. Mental health is not something that I really ever thought about or wrote about or did research on. And it wasn't until I was a grown man and I realized that something was off, and I was struggling, getting through my days. I was not able to get out of bed. I was noticing some things that were just really off, and a couple of friends started to point things out to me, and they said you should just go talk to a doctor about this because it might be something deeper. And so I did, and then the first two things that I was diagnosed with was severe depression and generalized anxiety. And so I was like, okay, all right. So it was nice to put a name to all of that. And I started kind of like documenting my experience. But then I still felt something was off. I'm like, something is not right here. I feel like something's missing. And so I continued to go through a couple months of, therapy and medicine and things like that. And my doctor was like, I think I'm gonna test you for ADHD. And I was like, no, I don't have ADHD. There ain't no way I have ADHD. Come to find out, I have severe ADHD. And so all of that was a lot for me to cope with. And I'm the kind of person, I use humor, as a way to cope with a lot of things. I also use it to deflect sometimes, which is something
Mhm.
I've always worked on with my therapist. But I wanted to find a way to be able to talk about ADHD, anxiety, depression in a way that could start a conversation, hopefully end the stigma, and add a little bit of levity to it because it's such a hard topic to talk about and people are afraid to talk about it. And I want to add some levity to it so that it can be a little bit more easy for people to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one
Mm,
of the things that I noticed as a clinician during the pandemic is a lot of that stigma that used to be there slowly starting to crumble away. And, I don't know therapists that have had openings really in the last 3 years because people are just like done. They're like, I can't do this way
yes.
anymore. Yeah. So it's
Absolutely. It's
sort of
scary.
it's good and it's bad, right? It's bad that we're all
Yes.
suffering, but it's good that
Yeah.
people are reaching out more.
Yes, it's good that people are having these conversations, and it's a conversation that needs to be had. A lot of people over the pandemic had a lot of time to really fully realize that, ADHD is a thing. And so like the one thing that I can't stand is when people are like, "Oh, ADHD, it's like this new thing that we didn't have this as kids, and it was just a blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "No, people are just feeling more comfortable talking about it, and people are starting to understand it now." So yeah, there's going to be more people reaching out for help because this is a thing that a lot of people,
A
have to
lot of
manage
people.
every single
Yeah.
day. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I don't specialize in the neurospicy stuff, but
Mhm.
I ended up taking a training on ADHD and reading a bunch of books because my husband has it.
Mhm.
And I feel like just that education piece is so important in just being able to relationship with other people. And I mean that
Mhm.
broadly, not just intimate relationship, but like
Mhm.
be a friend to someone, because a lot of what we see from other people we're like internalizing as, you know, means something about me that you
Mhm.
can't do X, Y, and Z, or you're having trouble. And no, that's just the way the brain is working, you know?
Right, right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's really crazy. Like the more research I did on it, I was like, wow, the signs have been here my entire life.
Yeah.
My entire life, but it took me until I was an adult to to realize this.
Yeah. I think when I was a kid there that was not a diagnosis. If it was, nobody talked about it, but even in the last, couple up until the last couple, maybe, I don't know, 10 years, our approach was, okay, throw a pill at it, not
Mhm.
necessarily like, hey, let's
Mhm.
understand why you do what you do. um and it's unfortunate because I think a lot of people who struggle with that, especially the ones that find out later in life, they're carrying a lot of struggle. Why can't I operate the way
Mhm.
everyone's telling me I should be operating
Yes.
in this world?
Absolutely. It's a hard thing to manage, and one of the things that I get to interview a lot of mental health professionals on my platform, which is a true blessing. And I remember I used to say the terminology. I battle with this every day, and this one mental health professional is like, you should not view it as a battle, view it as a partnership.
Mm,
That this is something that you're partnering with for the rest of your life. And for some reason, thinking of it that way has helped me a lot. It's helped me a
yeah,
lot with trying to just grasp everything, and it also helps me with just the management side of it every single day.
yeah.
Hmm.
I wanted to go back to something you were saying about, having these conversation and destigmatizing these mental health in general. And according to statistics, Black Americans are less likely to seek mental health care, which in a
Yes.
large portion is access to care, but some of it is
Hmm.
stigma. And I
Hmm.
wondered if, that's sort of part of your thing too, is to be able to
Hmm.
reach people of color, being a person of color yourself.
Absolutely. It is really, really, really scary, because a lot of the research that is done surrounding ADHD is mainly based off of white males,
Yep.
right? A lot of especially the initial research on ADHD. So a lot of it is fairly outdated, and there just really isn't that much research about Black Americans, or Black people in general with ADHD. So it's something that it's starting to come to realization. And what really is scary about it is that there's a lot of times in Black Americans' lives where they're, I guess, assigned a certain quality or a certain um, ideology about them that can be attributed to ADHD, but is not. It's like, oh, well, they're struggling because they didn't have a father figure in their life, or they're struggling because they're growing up in the inner city, or maybe they're having a chemical imbalance in their brain.
Hmm.
That kind of talk is just not happening. And and you mentioned access. That is gigantic. But on top of that, it's not even just the access, it's the quality of the things that they can get access to.
Sure.
So the type of um, care that a person in an underprivileged or inner city area, the type of stuff that they can get care wise is different than an area that has a wealth of wealth,
Yep.
and options. So the care is different, and that also puts people at a disadvantage. And on top of that, you have affordability, which this stuff is expensive, especially
Yeah.
if you don't have insurance. and
Yep.
and a
Or
lot
they
of
don't
people
take
just don't.
insurance too.
Exactly, yes. And
Yeah.
a lot of them, a lot of therapists don't, like
Yeah.
my therapist, does, but like I pay out of pocket, because it's just honestly easier that way for all parties involved. And I'm
Hmm.
fortunate enough that I have a job that I'm able to support myself and go to get care, every week. But like not everybody has that, and
Yeah.
it's a conversation that needs to be talked about.
Yeah. When I reached out to you, you were doing a little thing on Instagram about reactions people had to you talking about you were directing in the Heights
Mhm.
at the
Mhm.
Pittman Theater, which I was like, oh my God, he's local. That's amazing.
I am. I
Um, yeah,
am.
I did not know that. And so, and you were talking about representation. That was the
Yes.
point of your whole thing, was representation and how
Mhm.
important that is. And I guess I'm curious if, you know, not just because humor is your way of handling many things, but also if that helps with reaching your, the populations that need to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting because for those of you that don't know, Pittman, New Jersey is, and I'm not over exaggerating here. It is 97, 98% white, right?
Yeah.
Which is that's how it was founded. It's how it's been for a very long time. And In the Heights is a musical that features all black and brown people telling a story about black and brown people in Washington Heights, New York. This is the first time at this theater that we're performing at that the entire cast is all black and brown faces. It's just not something that happens at the theater, and it's opening a lot of eyes because there's like this kind of story, these kind of people are not really featured in this theater ever at all, and that's why it's become very, very special. And I'm hoping that like this continues to be a conversation that welcomes in black and brown people into this community, and hopefully more conversations can be had from this, not just about things from a mental health standpoint, but just a culture standpoint. There might be hopefully a better understanding as to what life is like for black and brown Americans in the United States.
Well, and I think there is, you know, exponential or, so much research that shows how the creative arts can help people in general,
Yes.
especially people who, are in underserved, uh, what word am I looking for?
Underprivileged kind of
Yeah,
areas.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
to be able to give expression to people who, need that. I mean, there's a link there between all of this, right?
Mhm.
Mental
Yes.
health, the creative arts, reaching, you know, populations, giving representation. I think um,
Mhm.
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it feels really good, and it's been shout out to the Pittman audiences. They really have been incredibly supportive, and they love the show, and they're being amazing. And there's obviously always going to be people online that will have their 2 cents
Yeah.
about it, which are the people that I normally respond to. But it's been truly a blessing, and I honestly I can't wait to do it again one day.
The Pittman Theater is such a little gem that I recently discovered
Hmm.
last year.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go to Broadway. I don't want to have to
It's
travel
expensive.
to see. It
Yeah,
is,
it's very
and it's like
expensive.
a whole event. It's a whole day,
Yes,
and
yes.
so I love that we have something.
Yeah,
And the shows that I've seen are really amazing
yeah,
so far.
yeah,
I
yeah.
heard you did The Color Purple somewhere. Where did you do
I
that?
did. I did that. That was at the Ritz Theater in Haddonfield, New
Yeah.
Jersey. I directed that one as well. And what's crazy is that this is my first downtime in probably about 8 months, because I started directing The Color Purple in like October of 2022, was rehearsing all the way through opening in February, and the week after we opened is the week that we started rehearsing in the Heights, and in the Heights opened 2 weeks ago. So
Wow. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's been nonstop for like the past like 7-8 months. So like I've been enjoying my downtime
Yeah.
for the first
Well,
time in a long time.
I certainly appreciate you spending your downtime with
Oh
me.
my God, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This is how I want
I
to do
wish
it.
I knew about The Color Purple because that is my
Hmm.
all-time favorite movie
No
ever.
way.
Like,
Oh my gosh,
yes, I
yeah,
grew
yeah.
up with it. I love it, and I read the
Hmm.
book.
It's Yeah.
It's a beautiful
There's
piece.
a new movie based on the musical coming out later this year, so you'll get to
Ooh,
see it. Yeah.
cool.
Hmm.
All right. So, given that you do all of these things,
Hmm.
um, how do you balance and stay on task with all that stuff? Having ADHD is it's very hard to prioritize. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. It's a struggle. Like I won't sugarcoat it. There's days that I have it under control, and there's days that it has me under control.
mm,
And luckily, I'm at a point now in my life where I can manage my life in a way that I can be productive and uh, still have like a good time and not feel like it's crazy.
mm,
But it's still very, very tough. I do have a lot going on, and um, I kind of have to just put little like safety measures and precautions and tools in place to make sure that I like stay on point and I stay focused, and I want to continue to be a productive member of society. So
yeah,
it's a struggle. It really is a struggle that I have to live with for the rest of my life.
yeah.
But I pride myself on how far I've come, and I pride
Hmm.
myself on the work that I put into not only educating myself but trying to educate other people as well.
I mean, it sort of blows my mind, and I hate the term neurotypical because I don't think that exists anymore. But like,
Yeah,
I'm a pretty type A brain, and
sure.
like, I hear about the thing. Like, I knew you were doing the Instagram, TikTok stuff, and
Hmm.
then you're like, you have this day job,
I do.
and then you're
I
doing all
do.
this, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I wake up,
Because
I go straight to work, and then after work, I'm either going to rehearsal or I'm making content,
yeah,
for the internet. Yeah, nonstop.
I have an Instagram and a Facebook page, and I feel like, how do you have time to do all the content? I feel like every
Yeah.
day you've got either, I don't know if it recycles old stuff I haven't seen, but like,
Mm-mm. It's all new.
that's new stuff every
Everything,
day.
every single day is something new, and that's on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Wow. I
Yeah, it's
always
something
forget
new on
about
each
that.
platform. But
That's
I
crazy.
also I also like plan out in advance. So like what I'll do is I'll do a thing called batching your content, which
Oh,
means
yeah.
that I'll write out, like, for example, if I want to focus on like something ADHD related, I'll write out maybe a blog that's like, 5 ways ADHD affects your life, right? And then I'll list out 5 ways. It'll be one big article, but and then I'll make a podcast out of that, right? I'll also take each individual thing, make a video out of that. I'll make like little
Oh.
bits and pieces based off of these things. So like it's not like I'm overworking. I'm just
Mhm.
taking like one piece of content and then splitting it up into
Breaking it down.
various, yeah,
Yeah.
areas. That saves a lot of time. But it's still a lot of work because each platform is different and you have to be ready to, you know, you just have to be ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's gonna ask you, like, what how well, 2 questions. One, I was gonna say, like, what inspires you, but you kinda just hinted on that, and the other is like, did you know you were funny? You're
um
hilarious.
when I was always a goofball in school growing up, and if any of my elementary and middle school friends or and high school friends are listening right now, they'll be like, yeah, like everything you see online, it's Kai's been like that since since middle school. um so I've always wanted to make people laugh. There's nothing better than just seeing a smile come across somebody's face. It's not always about like the belly laugh or anything like that. Sometimes it's just about like just making somebody just smirk. and I've always gotten a high off of that because I know it's like making their day just a little bit better, and that fills my cup. And so like that's just a really really fun thing that I've always enjoyed, and it's just kind of carried over throughout my years of my adult life, and um it just continued. It just continued, where now I can do it professionally, and people enjoy it.
Oh, yeah, because you do stand up as well
I
sometimes.
do. I do with all the
I
time,
forgot
with
that
all
one.
the time that I have, all the time that I have. I'm like, let me throw something else in there. Stand up.
Um, Going back to what I was saying about, going to the theater, and I'm not really a city person, like, one of the things that I guess for me makes that I, started following you is that your humor's so relatable. And I don't have ADHD, but you also do a lot on introversion. And I just
Hmm.
want to, I want to play a clip really
Yeah.
quick
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
this one had me dying the other day.
I'm an introvert,
Yes.
and I was in an extroverted mood for like 5 minutes yesterday, and I made the mistake of making plans like an idiot.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh. I
Yeah.
sent that to my friend who's also an introvert, and I was like, right?
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes people will always like one of the main questions I get is how do you come up with all of this content? And I tell people all the time, I'm like, I don't come up with it. It's just things that happen
It's
to me
happening.
in real life. It happens to a lot of us in real life. And I like, obviously for entertainment purposes, I'll like, over exaggerate or try to make it funny. But like, these are all real things and real situations that a lot of us find ourselves in. So, I enjoy being able to make content that people can watch it and be like, I've been in that situation before. I know what he's talking about. Like that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff makes me happy.
Yeah, I love it because it's odd, and I love to see what the statistics are on this, but there's a lot of therapists are introverts.
Hmm.
So a lot of our social emotional energy is dedicated to our clients, um,
Hmm.
to the point where, like, when I'm going home, I don't even want to listen to music with words. Like, I
Oh
don't want
yeah.
to. Yeah,
I drive home in silence all the time. I'll just take in
yeah,
like this. I'll if it's nice out, I'll roll down the window. I'll just take in the sounds. Say like I 100% ride home in silence a lot.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I have created my work schedule to only work 4 days a week.
Nice.
Though those 3 days, like, I'll do a podcast or a consult or something like that, but most of the time that's just for me. And one of those days has to be where I'm not peopling at all, so I can
Hmm.
recharge my battery and go back to work. And
Yes.
so thinking about all the stuff you do and how activated your brain is and how surrounded by people you are most of the time, how do
Yeah.
you balance out that, and be able to fill your cup back up as an introvert?
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you asked this because one of the biggest, I guess, myths about introversion, misconceptions, I should say, is that introversion means shy, and that's not necessarily the case because I'm not shy. I'm not a shy
Yeah.
person at all, right? And as you were alluding to, introversion is all about recharging your battery. Introverts we recharge our battery alone. Like we prefer to be alone to recharge our battery. Extroverts, it's the opposite. They recharge their batteries surrounded by people, interacting with people, so on, so forth. And as you said, I'm around people all the time, so it's like I have to. If I want to stay sane, I have to find moments to recharge my battery. I also have to be honest with myself. And if I find that I'm not in the correct mind state to interact or be like social or whatever it may be with people, I try not to put myself in that situation if I can avoid it. If I know that I'm gonna be like for example, I went to a party, like a Cinco de Mayo party, on Friday night, and I knew that I was going to be surrounded by so many people, and I knew that it was going to be like just a day with peopling, right? So I went to my show that night. I stopped at home for like an hour and a half, right? And then I went out to the party. And like that hour and a half, I knew I'm like, okay, if I just like stay at home and just hang out with my cats for like an hour, hour and a half, I'll be fine. And I was
Mm.
fine because I just know my body, I know my brain. So like little things like that is how I stay sane. If I'm at work, if it's too much, I'll go to my car. I'll just sit in my car for 5, 10, 15 minutes, and then I'll go back. If it's a party, I'll go escape to, the bathroom for like 10 minutes and just chill away from people for a little bit. So like finding little moments like that is what keeps me like from pulling like any sort of hair out of my body. Otherwise I'll be gone.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious what like self-care looks like for you. I know for me, I enjoy a good documentary or
Hmm.
playing with my dogs. I think animals, like you just reminded me of like the person who is at the
Hmm.
party that just spends the whole time playing with the dog in the
That's
corner.
me. That's
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, self-care for me, it kind of varies. There's a lot of things that I find interest in, so like I travel alone all the time. Like I'll go on mini vacations by myself a lot, so vacationing, I'm writing a book. I'm writing two books actually. So
Awesome.
working on those is a lot of fun. Making content, even though it's work, I don't view it as work. Like it's an artistic release for me. So when I'm
Mhm.
home, being able to make content, like that's such a cool thing that I really enjoy. Um so yeah. Yeah, just it depends. Like I love watching movies. I'm a big comic book fan, so like
Oh yeah, I saw
I have
your
my
recent
things.
nerdiness
Oh yeah, I
on
was
the
a geek. I
Instagram.
was I was a nerd all week. Yeah, yeah. Monday was superheroes. Tuesday was Harry Potter. Wednesday was anime. Thursday was Star Wars. I was just like, I'm just gonna be a nerd all week. I love it.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Have you I mean, I think it's hard for people to be, especially on the internet, to be so outwardly authentic,
Mhm.
and eh, I guess I'm curious about what that's like for you and what do you do when you are, I don't know, like how do you handle it when there's negative feedback about that? Because
Mhm.
I'm sure there is.
Mhm.
There's always trolls.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's always going to be something or somebody that is not rooting for you. And when I first started out in content creation, like that really bothered me because I wanted everybody to like me. I wanted everybody to
Mm,
laugh.
mhm.
And not everybody has to like you, I learned. It's really okay, And so 99% of the people that follow me or reach out to me are the kindest, most sweet people I have ever met in my entire life, right? There's always going to be that 1% that just want you to fail, and that's okay. That's okay. It used to bother me, but now I find my sense of joy in the people that are getting something good out of it. People that reach out and say, "Hey, you made me laugh today," or "Hey, I reached out to my doctor today to talk about depression." Like that kind of stuff like fills my cup, and it kind of makes it easy to negate some of the other stuff that comes through.
Yeah.
And the more and more people that follow you, like, because I have close to 1 million on TikTok and about 200,000 on Instagram. Not all of them are going to like you, and there's going to be more exposure, which means that's going to be even more people that don't like you. So it's like, okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to let them dictate how you live your life, or are you going to continue to do what makes you happy and makes the majority of the people around you happy? That's what matters to me. So that's what I try to focus on.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Hmm.
Do you have I don't know how to say this, humor influence? Like who do you think is funny? I guess.
That's a broad question because there's so many incredible content creators out there that are just like so creative, and like I'm sitting there watching their stuff. I'm like, how did you come up with this? Oh my gosh. And I'm like sitting there just, I'm like, okay. And I grab my notebook. I'm like, okay, how can I make something funny? My biggest the person I'm the biggest fan of, her name is Manon Matthews. And that's her screen name as well, Manon Matthews. And I've been following her since the days of like Vine,
Whoa.
and yeah, I know I'm dating myself now, but I've been following her for the longest time, and she's like just a goofball that like just goes for it, like just kind of like she's just so ridiculously funny, and so I draw inspiration from her, just like being like a goofball and like just going full fledged, into each character that she plays. And then there's also, influencers or content creators that are informative, and I love listening to them because they're able to get the correct information across to with whatever they're talking about. And so I try to combine the two. It's like, okay, how can I be a goofball while still being informative? And it's a tough balance, but I continue to watch what other people are doing, and
Mm.
I draw inspiration from them. There's so many. There's literally hundreds
There's
of
so
people that
many,
I
yeah.
love. There's so many great ones.
There's so many great ones, and I I've been kind of vocal on this podcast about my disdain for TikTok just because for so many reasons, but mostly because people come into my office and they're like, "Oh, guess what I learned on TikTok?" And I'm like, "Oh man." Because there are so many armchair therapists that might be or
Yeah,
armchair experts that are,
yeah,
not necessarily sharing the right information, and so it's really
yeah,
hard to
yeah,
sort
and it's
through.
and it's not just mental health. There's a lot of just people that are just,
Oh,
they
sure.
they think that they're experts, which is why I always tell people, like, I'm not a mental health expert, nor do I pretend to be one, nor do I play one on TV. Like I am not a mental health expert. But I love bringing mental health experts and professionals onto my platform to
Mm,
spread their knowledge and all of that. And I always try to caution people, like even when it's with my stuff, like I share things from my own personal experience, things that work for me personally.
mhm,
Does that mean it works for everybody? No. The
right.
medicines that I take are known to not work for everybody. They just happen to work for me, And so when it comes to people, online sharing their quote expertise, whether they are experts or not, you still should probably like get like a second opinion, second, third opinion, do your research, and don't just believe everything that you see and hear on any platform, whether it's
Mhm,
TikTok, Instagram, a Google search. It's just really important that you do your own research, you get second and third opinions, and then you kind of just go from there. But just be very, very careful. Look at the accreditation of the people that you're listening to, see
yeah.
what they're certified in, see what other people say about them. Like, do your research.
Well, that's a good point too, because even, and I know there are tons of therapists on TikTok, doesn't mean they know what they're talking about either, you
Sure,
know? It's a
sure,
very
yeah.
specialized area,
Hmm.
ADHD and or neuro
Hmm.
diversity.
Yeah, and there's some ADHD coaches and therapists, like they do know what they're talking about, but perhaps their method is not for you.
Mhm.
Like it's a very deeply nuanced situation where there are people that bring good things to the table, but once again, like solving this ADHD riddle, there's not one solution,
No.
right? Like if there was, then we'd be okay. We'd only need one person. There'd be one book, like this is what ADHD is,
Right.
this is how to fix it.
Right.
But that's not the case. It's very, very different. So yeah, just do your research, please. I beg you. Do
Yeah.
your research, and then go from there.
I'm a huge fan of people seeing specialists for different
Mhm.
things. Like, if
Mhm.
something's wrong with my foot, I'm going to go to a podiatrist because they know everything there is to know about feet.
Yes.
And so
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
fan of that when it comes to therapy too. You want to go to someone who has an expertise in that area because
Mhm.
um I don't necessarily think it, and this is just my over opinionatedness, but like if you have something specific like a neurodiversity, seeing a general practitioner, they may not understand all those nuances and have
Sure.
that information. So,
Sure.
yeah, I
They
like
they should hopefully be able to point you in the right direction.
hope so.
Yeah, like hopefully. And there's a lot of articles out there about that very topic about, primary care doctors should probably be a little bit more well versed on the mental health side of things. Like the
Absolutely.
questions that they're asking, on your physical checkup, there should be probably a little bit more in regards to the mental health side of things as well, because that can also, like, the mental health side of things can be an indicator for things that are going wrong on the physical side too. So it's like
It's true.
you would think that there would be more of a push to, understand how the mental side is affecting the physical side. So I've read a lot of
Right.
articles about that very topic.
Yeah. I recently spoke to somebody who was telling me that they had gone to their general practitioner for panic issues,
Mm,
and the doctor told her that her brain was just weak.
wow.
So,
Wow.
by the way, if anybody ever says that to any of our listeners, get a new doctor.
Oh man, your
That's not
brain
okay.
is weak. Make sure you're
Well,
doing do your brain you're lifting
your
weights with your brain.
calisthenics. Yeah,
Yes, your brain cardio.
ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. And I and you know again, going back to diversity, it, uh, if you don't understand how that works,
Mhm.
then I could then yeah, that would probably be somebody's stupid response. You know what I mean? And then what does that
Mhm.
do for the person who has that brain? You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
ridiculous.
Yep, which is why I'll never stop saying this. Like, if you're ever, listening to somebody tell you something and you're like, I don't know, go talk to somebody else. Like, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
100% to okay to go talk with another person about what you're experiencing and what another person has told you, because, like, it's just like if you were to go get like a car, like your car fixed, and the person's like, I think you should fix this. And you're like, I don't, are you sure? That's pretty expensive for this fix. And you're like, okay, let me go see what another mechanic says,
Mhm.
or whatever
Mhm.
it may be. It's like when you're getting an estimate for a roof on your house, like if you're getting estimates and you're kind of shopping around, you're going to like listen to what a lot of people have to say about what they feel is best for your house.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing with your brain. Treat it
Yeah.
the same way.
Well, and it should be too, because people don't realize that, at least in the therapy world, all therapists do have a different approach to therapy. We don't
Hmm.
all do the same way. We don't all therapize the same way, right?
Yes,
We
yes.
all have a different way of doing it. And so,
Yeah.
not everybody's going to be your cup of tea, and that's
Hmm.
okay. Shopping around
Yes.
is important.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
So, one of the things that, shifting back a little bit, one of
Hmm.
the things that you talk about a little bit is the positive vibes. Um, and so, when do you or don't you examine the less positive or more serious side of things yourself?
So I'm glad you said that, because I always one thing you'll never see me say is good vibes only.
Yeah.
I'll say good vibes, right? Because I don't believe in good vibes only. I think that we should acknowledge all types of vibes. um, I am a human being that experiences emotions and feels and ups and downs just like everybody else, and I acknowledge those things, and I try to showcase those things as well. A lot of people will always ask me, they're like, how are you happy all the time? And I'm like, I'm not. And that's why people have to be careful with what they see on the internet, because it's very curated. Like what I put out there, even though I'm genuine with what I'm putting out there, it's very curated with what I put out there, and so there's times that I'm, sitting on my couch wondering, like, why am I spending so much time working on this, like, and I'll be beating myself up, and like the stuff that people don't see online, that happens to me all the time,
Hmm.
so I always try to remind people that I'm a human being, and like, you'll never hear me say good vibes only, positive vibes only, because there's a lot of things that are not necessarily good vibes, but are good for you to experience because that's what makes you who you are. It's what it helps you grow as a person, and those experiences, both good and bad, are what make you a better person. So
Mhm.
like I
Mhm.
it's not just good vibes, and I do believe in toxic positivity. There's a lot of content creators online that do live in that toxic positivity world, and I'll look at their stuff sometimes and I'm like, why are you behaving this way? I know that you're not like this all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So I try not to be that person.
I sometimes think that it's an attempt to convince themselves, not other people.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm an internal family systems based therapist, so that type of approach is all about embracing all of the parts of us, whether they are, seen by others as negative or whatever, because they too have a point,
Hmm.
like the
Yes.
depressed parts of us have
Hmm.
something to tell us and we need to
Hmm.
listen. No,
Absolutely.
there are no bad parts. They just have
Hmm.
different ways of getting our attention. And
Yes. Hmm.
yeah. And so
Absolutely.
embracing the totality of who we are, shadows
Hmm.
and light, is, I think,
Yes.
the best way to heal, ourselves.
Absolutely. 100%. Hmm.
Yeah. Hmm. What else? Tell me about your podcast. When did that start?
Yeah.
That's pretty new.
Yeah. No, I've had that
Oh.
since COVID. I'm going on 3 years. Yeah,
Oh.
I've gone on 3 years. I'm on episode 176, 178, something like that. Yeah, it started. I've always wanted a podcast, and then when COVID happened and everything shut down, I was like, okay, well, now is the perfect time to have
Yeah.
a podcast. So yeah, so I'm encroaching 200 episodes this year, and I love to interview content creators, like other popular content creators, and just mental health professionals that specialize in a variety of things. Because you'll notice, like on my platform, I'll usually only focus on anxiety, depression, introversion, and ADHD, because those are the
Mhm.
things that I experience, right?
Right.
But I'm not going to make content about things that I'm not diagnosed with. Like, right, I'm not going to make content about like being like OCD or
Mhm.
bipolar or anything like that, right? Because I don't personally experience that.
Mhm.
Um, but I love bringing on experts and professionals that are well versed in those things that I can learn from and
Mm.
record myself learning from them and then put it out, for the world to see. So so yeah, so I that's what my podcast has always been, and I love interviewing people. I love talking with people and learning from them. And the past 3 years have been a godsend because I've learned so much from so many good people.
And is the podcast, I does that focus more on the serious end, or is that funny too?
Yeah, it's also humorous, but it's also like, I don't want to say like it's comedy centric because it's not. It's informative
Mhm.
first, and then with a dose of humor in it, when appropriate,
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
thing. Yeah, but I do try to keep it light, but we do talk about some very serious things sometimes. We talk about suicide. We talk about, the struggles that we have with anxiety. We talk about these really deep, dark moments in our lives and things that we have to work through and that deserve a serious open conversation, because that's how we're going to get people to feel comfortable talking about this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And going
Hmm.
back to, um, the use of humor, why do you think that works so well?
um
Like it's a coping mechanism, but why do you
yeah.
think people are gravitating towards it?
I can't speak for everybody, but I know for me, I think it just makes it a little bit more easy to talk about when you're able, like when something's relatable, you can't help but just be like, huh, yeah, kind of thing, and smile um, and laughing and smiling is also what we do when we don't know what to do as well, right? It's like, if something awkward's happening, we're
Mhm.
like, ah, okay, and so it's a common thing that we revert to or go to in various different times. And it's something that we can all relate to. So when you're able to laugh about something, there's something about laughter that helps it be ingrained, and it helps validate your feelings sometimes. I put it in the same category as, a popular song or a song that you like, the lyrics. It's one of those things that I like. Somebody says something like, "Oh, wait, that lyric, it speaks directly to me," and so music plays a
Yeah.
role in that. So I put it in the same category as that.
Yeah. That's a good link
Hmm.
up. I like that. Yeah.
Hmm.
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, another one of my favorites that you put out was you were like, I would find the clip, but it would take too long. You were like, okay, this one is for people ages 35 to 50. So if you're not between that age, keep scrolling.
Keep
And then you're
scrolling.
like,
Yeah.
are they gone? Yo, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Died.
Those people really love those type of ones because once again, it's just like these are questions that all of us, we all ask ourselves this all the time. We ask
Yeah.
ourselves these questions like, what are we doing, like what am I doing with my life, am I doing this right? It's like it's something that we all experience. And like when somebody calls you out on it in a good way, it's like, hey, I know what you're thinking right now, it's what we're all thinking. It just kind of like adds like this weird sense of community. It's like none of us know what we're doing, we're all just kind of going through it and hoping for the best.
It's so true. And I
Yeah.
love that, creating community through through humor in
Yes.
regards to the mental stresses, because the thing is, I don't know anybody who doesn't have stress, anxiety, or
Hmm.
depression. And so I think, you know, even if somebody isn't neurodiverse, they can relate to
Hmm.
the things that you put out because everybody's got stuff, as I always say.
It helps because a lot of like everybody feels like anxious about something, right? So like I always try to, like, for people that don't understand what having generalized anxiety is like, I try to use their everyday normal quote anxiety, to help explain what it's like for us. So it's like, okay, that feeling that you get when you are at a cash register, all right, and you're like you're backing up, everything's being backed up or whatever, and you finish the transaction but you're still there at the cash register, and the person behind you is ready to start cashing out their stuff, but you're still kind of like gathering your life together, like maybe the cashier just
Yes.
just gave you change and you're like you haven't put it all the way in your wallet yet,
Yes.
and like that anxiety, that where you feel like rushed, you're like, right. So like I'll say that to people and they're like, oh yeah, I know that feeling. I'm like, okay, so imagine having that feeling 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's what it's like for me sometimes, and
Yeah.
so it helps that, like a lot of people experience these things. So it's like, okay, what example can I use to help them understand what it's like for people that experience this all day every day?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Breaking it down into
Hmm.
something everybody can
Hmm.
feel.
Yeah.
You mentioned therapy earlier in your life, and I just was curious if you wanted to touch on how important that was for you.
Yeah, actually, I didn't start going to therapy until I was an adult man, and when I was well into my 30s, because, like, once again, I didn't, mental health was just not something I ever thought about. But I'm glad that I did. Um, there was a point that I couldn't afford to go for the longest time, so I would just go as needed. Like if
Yeah.
something was like really, really, really bad, then I would go and I would just try to save up some money and go. But like now I'm fortunate enough that I can go, on a schedule. But it's changed my life because you have somebody here that understands what you're going through and can talk you through and can help you cope and can give you the tools and the resources needed to help you manage your ADHD and depression and anxiety all the time. And not just that, like even just everyday situations, whether it be relationship, struggles or work struggles, like various types of things in your life, like my therapy sessions dive into. and it helps. It helps a lot. It helps put things into perspective to have somebody with like a 30,000-foot view of your life, kind of like not necessarily giving you answers, but helping you find the answers on your own. That is a
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful feeling.
Yeah. What was I going to say about that? Lost my train of thought.
That's an ADHD moment right there. That right there happens to me at least 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day. And like
Yeah.
sometimes it'll happen. Like it'll happen sometimes when I'm in the middle of talking. Like it'll just be like I'll be
Yeah.
in the middle of a sentence, and all of a sudden I'll be like, I have no idea where this sentence is going. No idea. I have no idea. And I just kind of acknowledge it at this point. I'll just be like, I just had an ADHD moment. I have no I have no idea
Yeah.
what I was talking about.
Yeah. I think it happens because things pick up while you're talking, but I'm
Mhm.
listening to you talk, so
Mhm. Yep.
sometimes they just disappear if I don't
Story of
write
my
it down.
life.
Yeah.
Story of my life.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, I am so thankful that you took the time to your very precious downtime to come talk to me.
No, I love doing this stuff. Like I am a firm believer that you make time for the things that matter, and things like this, being able to talk about this type of thing, it really really fills my cup. And so like it was a heck yeah from me, when you reached out. So I have no problem, taking time to do this.
Thank you so much, Kai. Really
Absolutely.
enjoyed talking to you, and I can't wait for our listeners to find you and laugh along with the rest of us.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited, and yeah, please, everybody listening and watching, whatever it may be, like, don't be afraid to reach out. I try to respond to as many people as I can. I might be delayed sometimes, but I really do try to respond to as many people as I can. So reach out.
When you are done with In the Heights, what comes next?
I actually just signed on to do something. When is this airing, or when is this being put out?
June. This will
Okay,
be
all
the
right.
first Friday in June.
Okay, all right, so I can say it because by the time that this comes out, this will be a thing. So I just signed on to make my return to the stage where I'll be on stage, and I signed on to play to play the role of Plankton in SpongeBob the musical, and I'm
That's
super
awesome.
excited. Yes, I'm super excited. And that those rehearsals start Monday for me, and so yeah. By the time this comes out, it'll be like already an official announcement. So yeah,
Where
I'm
will
excited.
that be?
That'll be at the Ritz in
Oh, cool.
Haddonfield. Yeah, so I'm
That's
super excited
awesome.
about that. I've always loved SpongeBob, so to
Yeah,
be able to perform in that musical, I'm super excited.
that's very cool, Kai.
Yeah.
Well, we wish you all the luck and break a leg with that.
Thank you so
And
much. I appreciate that.
again, thank you so much for coming and spending time with
Yeah,
us.
absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're interested in connecting with Heather or the guest today, please see the show notes for that info. If you'd like to be a guest on the Symmetry sessions, the link to send us your request is also in the show notes. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like to show some support, buy me a coffee at www.buymeacoffee.com/symmetrysesh, SYMMETRYSESH. You can make a small donation to help keep the episodes coming. And when you buy me a coffee, you're supporting small business professionals and podcasters. Every donation helps me to get better podcasting equipment and network to find new and interesting guests. Don't miss an episode. The Symmetry Sessions launches every first Friday of the month, so make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time.